This broadcast is brought to you by the Central Neighborhood Health Foundation. Central Neighborhood Health Foundation has 7 locations to serve you: Los Angeles County, San Bernardino County, and Riverside County, with headquarters in Los Angeles on Olympic Boulevard. Central Neighborhood Health Foundation offers general medicine, pediatrics, and women's medicine. CNH provides affordable, quality health care by appointment or by walk-in to their many clinics. CNH is a Medicare-certified quality health care clinic whose mission is to minimize disparities in healthcare access and outcomes. CNHF provides quality, patient-centered health care for underserved and vulnerable multi-ethnic communities in Los Angeles and Riverside. You can also visit our social media site, Central Neighborhood Health Foundation at Facebook.com and CNH Clinics at Instagram. You can also visit our website at cnhfclinics.org. And remember, there is COVID testing in June, Monday through Thursday, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. in Los Angeles. Inglewood Clinic, Monday through Thursday, from 10 a.m. to 11. And remember, the CNHF Grand Clinic 2624 Food Pantry every first and third Mondays of every month from 10:30 a.m. till 12. And remember, your life, your health, brought to you by cnhfclinics.org. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. And welcome to Intentional Talk Radio Network. This is a great opportunity for us to be with a host of experts, and we thank you for joining us. I am your host, and I would like to welcome you to the color of COVID-19 and its impact on the African American community, health, wellness, and economics. We will begin by addressing the disparities in the African American community and move toward creating strategies for solutions. We will identify and discuss COVID-19 from a medical perspective, an African American perspective, and a community perspective, and why the financial impact is so great. We have developed a panel of distinguished doctors and other experts in their field who will disseminate information necessary for the community to lead a change in the narrative of their lives, thus taking control of their own trajectory with regard to health, wellness, and financial well-being. We know we cannot do it all in one telehealth conference. However, we will begin right here, right now, today on this broadcast. And we'd like to thank you for joining us. I'd like to introduce you to Pastor Anthony McFarland, who is Harvest Lift Church on the sunny side of Southern California, Altadena. And thank you for joining us, Pastor. Thank you. And it's on you.
All right. Can you all hear me well?
Yes.
Because I wasn't sure if it was my system or you.
Yeah, this is the engineer. Pastor, we're getting some background noise.
Okay, you're not getting it from me. There's nothing on in my office.
Something's coming from, okay, that stopped it. Okay, we're good now. Go ahead.
Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today, giving you all the praise, glory, and honor. We thank you for this community forum produced by International Talk Radio, in which we come to share with one another, sharpen one another. We pray that as we gather together on this live stream across the nation to address various issues that the African American community faces, that this meeting, this forum, be filled with your wisdom, guidance, knowledge, understanding, and answers as we attempt to have a very meaningful and purposeful discussion that we all will benefit from. So, Father, we understand that we are stronger together as we purpose to sharpen and encourage one another today. I thank you that your grace is on each and every guest, each and every doctor and individual that will add to this forum and empower your people, enlighten your people. So we thank you for a successful forum. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Now take yourself off mute.
I'd like to introduce our moderators for the evening. was none other than Mr. Jay King, who is president of the Black California Chamber of Commerce. He's located in Sacramento, California. And also, again, Pastor Anthony McFarland will also be moderating this evening. So again, thank you for joining us, folks. Have a very good, informative, motivating, and inspiring discussion. And that's why we do this. Thank you. Jay? Pastor Anthony.
Welcome to the telehealth conference and virtual symposium titled The Color of COVID-19, Its Impact on the Black Community. We're going to speak on health, wellness, and economics, and how they impact each other. We all have witnessed the devastating and effect COVID-19 has had on the whole world. But today we're going to zero in on the way it has negatively impacted the Black community, and hopefully offer different insights and solutions on how we can use this pause in time and what is viewed as negative and devastating and turn it into a positive reboot for our community. Now is the time for us to talk about financial literacy, and because by simply becoming financially literate and becoming investors in the stock market and other areas of finance and ownership, we could change 100 years in 10. We can start planning for group and community economics and community investment fund by buying back single family homes and apartment complexes in our communities and paying rents back to ourselves. We can start by building voting blocks and cash in on our political equity by supporting and voting in groups for candidates that are going to do the work that we want and need, that is necessary to build us politically, economically, and foundationally strong. So we have the opportunity to change the narrative by taking hold of it and redirecting this pause in time, this reboot, and turn it into a restart for our community. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Pastor Anthony McFarland, and he will start this symposium off with the first two questions. Mr. McFarland.
Thank you, Jay. It's an honor to be with you all today. Yolanda, I'm honored that you have me as a guest moderator on this platform with such distinguished guests. With no further ado, I would like to welcome our distinguished panelists, and I would ask that you kind of wave at everybody so that they can identify who you are. And those of you that are not on video, that are guests on this platform, I would encourage you to figure out within the next 30 seconds how to get your video to work. And if you're having a challenge with getting it to work, I'm going to encourage you to switch over to YouTube and take a quick 2-minute tutorial so that you can connect. Thank you, sir. Praise the Lord. All right. Awesome. 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 I see more people coming on video. At this time, I'd first like to introduce Dr. Paul Wallace, MD, dermatologist at Wallace Skincare. Come on, let's give him a big applause. We do big applause by putting your hands together. Where are you at, Dr. Paul? There you go. I see you. All right, awesome. Our next guest panelist is Dr. Donald Henderson, gastroenterology specialist. Let's give him a big applause. All right, awesome, awesome. And then we have Dr. Donald Ware, MD, cardiology specialist at Covenant Medical Center. Yeah, in the house. And then we also have with us Dr. Bill Relaford, doctor of podiatric medicine, Relaford Foot and Ankle Institute, founder of Black Barbershop Health Outreach Program. I love it. Yes. Then we have with us on tonight, this evening, Dr. John T. Daniels, DDDS, dentistry specialist. We all need this brother.
Absolutely.
Yes. And then we have Dr. A. Diop, pediatrician, chief medical officer at Central Neighborhood Health Foundation. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
That's Dr. Diop.
Dr. Diop. Help me out. All right. And then we have none other than the Honorable Jan Perry, former Los Angeles City Councilwoman. In her 12-year tenure, led catalytic projects such as LA Live, the Cathedral of Lady of the Angels, and the new police administration building. Welcome, welcome, welcome to you.
Good evening.
And then we have another phenomenal sister with us this evening, Arja Langdon. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. All right, tax preparer, financial strategist who has established successful mortgage and real estate companies, along with insurance, tax, and financial services offices. Phenomenal work that she's doing. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for joining us on tonight on behalf of International Talk Radio Network. We're going to open up right away, and I would be amiss to properly just acknowledge once again Yolanda. Let's give it up for Yolanda. She said no. Okay.
And it's Intentional Talk Radio.
Intentional Talk Radio. I keep saying International Talk. I'm viewing you as
we will be international very soon.
I'm speaking those things that be not as though they were.
Yes, absolutely. And
then, of course, our other entertainment mogul, businessman, moderator for this evening, air personality, president of California Black Chamber of Commerce. Give it up for Jay King one more time, everybody.
Hey, Jay.
Yay, Jay.
So, Jay, let's get started here, or do you want to share something before we get started, Miss Yolanda?
Actually, I'd like to say welcome and thank you for joining us. And we do have questions that I'm sure all of our panelists and experts will be able to answer for our guests. And I know that it's going to be a great show. They're going to disseminate lots of information that we can depend on. That's most important. These are very, very trying, challenging times. And we felt here at Intentional Talk Radio that we wanted to disseminate information that was directly to the African American community. So I know that the information it's worldwide, but I do believe with this very distinguished panel of doctors who I am so incredibly proud of, it does me so good to see so many doctors, so many professionals, that this is really, really a fantastic thing. And the information I know is going to be absolutely powerful. And also probably we'll get a chance to see the real deal, hear the real deal, and then what we hear on the news, we can weigh it, and we know that it's going to be real coming from the doctors. So thank you very much for joining us. Anthony and Jay, it's on you. Thank you.
Okay, well, first I'd like to share with our distinguished guests, there are some rules of engagement, so to speak. So we're going to ask you not to give a dissertation on the questions posed, and if you would be so kind to limit your answers to, if I'm correct, 2 to 3 minutes, giving room for others to chime in. Each question will not be posed for the whole group, but we'll look to hear from 2 or 3 of you on, or 2 specifically on each question that we pose to you on tonight, as we look to have a very formative and insightful forum tonight. And then we'll also make room and provision for responses as well. All right, with that being said, let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that the Black community, and we know that it's strategic, always suffers disproportionately in issues like this. And one, I want to ask you, as much as I believe we have the answer to it, but from your position and seat that you sit in and your years of experience in the medical field or political field, why is that? And then what are some of the measures that, as African Americans, we can do to lessen our risk when it comes to COVID-19?
And this question is for?
This question is for, I just wanted to open the panel up on this.
I can start.
All right.
Dr. Ware.
Yes. First of all, before we really look at the medical part of COVID-19, we need to look at the public health part, the milieu in which the medical doctors and others have to operate. Okay. It is 2020, and most of you know if you have 20/20 vision, you have excellent vision. You should be able to see clearly. But right now with the COVID virus, we cannot see it. We cannot touch it. We cannot do anything but react to it. I want to give you just a couple of minutes of definition so that we know what we're talking about and we understand better. The COVID virus derives their names from the fact that under electron microscopic examination, you can see a corona or a crown around it. The coronaviruses are a large family of viruses, which usually cause mild to moderate upper respiratory illness. However, there are 3 new coronaviruses that have come on to the scene that cause widespread illness and death. You may have heard of the SARS virus, SARS. That stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. Then there's another one, the MERS virus. You may have heard of that. That is the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. These viruses are transferred from the animal into the human. The MERS happened in the Middle East, and the animal transfer was the camel. The coronavirus is novel. You hear the term novel all the time. All that means is that it's a new virus on the scene. And we call it 19 because it was discovered in 2019. So we have COVID-19. That's what that means. According to the CDC, the possible origin of 19 is derived from the bat. We're going to do 2 more things and then we'll let other people talk. What is an epidemic? You've heard about an epidemic, and it's a rapid spread of infectious disease to a number of people in a short period of time. Before the advent of rapid transportation, nature was able to control most of its epidemics because of distance between populations. We had to walk across deserts. We had to ship across oceans. There were fires and other things that nature put into place to contend the virus. Now, it is possible to reach any continent in the world in 12 to 24 hours. That's where our problem comes from. What is a pandemic? A pandemic starts off as an epidemic, but for various reasons will spread across a large region which globally impacts the health of all of us. Because of the advent of this new technology, we find ourselves in this current situation where we have a worldwide pandemic. I just wanted to set that up as kind of a milieu, a definition, so we know what we're talking about. And when you lose these terms on television or radio, you know what they're referring to.
Awesome. Dr. Ware, again, why is it impacting African-American communities the way that it is? And again, how do we respond to this?
Well, again, if you look at the public health approach, where do we live? A lot of us live by the freeway. There's a lot of pollution that comes from the freeway. We live in this area where there is a lot of particulate matter in the air. We smoke. We drink. All of these things affect our overall health. We live close together. And with this particular virus, if we do not do social distancing and wear masks, it is a death sentence to a lot of us. We have high blood pressure, for example. we have shown that high blood pressure is one of the major risk factors for this pandemic virus. Now, the medicines that we use to control our blood pressure, most of them will control the blood pressure, but there are certain medicines that give an added benefit to us that a lot of us don't know and are not using. We call them the ACE inhibitors, the ARBs. They protect us against what we call microvascular disease, kidney disease, and diseases of high blood pressure and diabetes together. Diabetes, again, altered immune system with diabetes. We have obesity. We have a number of risk factors that are inherent in our lifestyle that hurt us when it comes to this virus. Later on, I'll talk a little bit more about what I see as our personal responsibility and what I call phase 1 and phase 2 of this viral situation that will help us get out from under the situation.
Okay, Dr. Henderson, would you like to add to that?
I think Dr. Ware made some excellent points, and I thank him for his definition. I thank you for inviting me onto this forum. I'd like to say that there are 8 dimensions of wellness and well-being that if you follow and actually work on those dimensions, some of which are financial, physical, emotional, social, etc., those dimensions are critical to making sure that you live a long and healthy life. If you look at the comorbidities and the rate of diseases such as kidney disease, heart failure, poor response to cancer, lung disease, we fit the highest categories of individuals who are affected mostly by those syndromes. And that's because we have a high degree of obesity and overweight within our communities. That's a direct link to diet and to these diseases and to the way that we respond. Our immune systems are supported by our nutritional status. If you burn bad gasoline within your car, you get plugged up spark plugs and valves because of the goo that fits within the engine. The engine and the gasoline for our car, the engine is our body, the car, and the fuel that we take is the food that we eat. So, so that is the source of historically why we have these incredibly negative demographic differentials in terms of other populations as to how we respond to disease. And now when you tie into that, the financial aspects that are related to not having financial resources and the cultural factors that relate to how we value our families' education and school, and how we look at social media and the things that are propagated that are related to maybe things that are good and enjoyable, but not as important in the structure of family for learning and educating children. Those are all the factors that play into why we have this disparate response to all types of diseases, including this particular virus.
Agreed.
And can I touch a little bit on the financial aspect?
Okay, let's go right ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to touch on, you touched a little bit on, Dr. Henderson did, on the financial aspect of it. And yes, in our communities, we're more likely to take those lower end jobs. We're more likely to be in the medical field. We're more likely to be in the retail fields. We're more likely to be the drivers of public transportation. So now that means we have more exposure because we are in these fields. So when we have more exposure, and then the communities we live in, because of course we're not homeowners in our community, we're going to congested apartments where there's more people residing. So it's spreading among us. We are definitely more at risk in our community for various different factors, including the health, like we talked about, the different health reasons and health problems we have, but economic reasons as well.
I'd like to respond to that just by saying that the fact that you're exposed doesn't mean that you will catch the disease. Right. The fact that when you catch the disease doesn't mean it's going to kill you unless your immune system is diminished by other factors. And I agree with you in terms of describing our socioeconomic position in this particular culture and society. But the truth is that if we have a better protection of our overall sense of wellness within the 8 dimensions that I mentioned, then we would have a better chance of surviving and withstanding these diseases. Now, the economics do play an important part. The zip code does determine how long you live and how much money you will make, and you get to that zip code because you do make some money. So there's a chicken and the egg effect here, but the truth is that we need to do some cultural changes and reassess our cultural values. Is it more important to buy a pair of jeans or a pair of sneakers, or to learn how to do mathematics? Is it more important to dress a certain way, or to learn how to go to school and get a high school diploma or or associate's degree in education? Is it important to learn how to use the educational system to our benefit? Right now, this virus is damaging generations of African Americans because we don't have the kind of computerization or family structure that allows for homeschooling to replace the diminution in educational structure that's going on now. We need to address these issues within the framework of this discussion.
Thank you, Jay.
Now,
So let me say this to everyone, all of the panelists, and also to my co-moderator. We have 2 hours. So really, if there's an answer that's similar to what you would say, please try not to double the answers, because we're trying to move through this pretty quickly. And to my partner, I would say, point the questions to different people so we can make sure everybody gets to speak. And so this question is pointed towards Ms. Langdon and Ms. Perry. And then if we have time, we'll let other people come in. But this is for you two because of the area in which we're speaking. Did you think, and I'm gonna start with you first, Ms. Langdon. Did you think the coronavirus would have such a profound effect on the African-American small business community so quickly? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
Absolutely. And the reason being is because in our communities, unfortunately, we have the less savings. We're spending more money. We have, they're 30 days away from broke, 30 days away from bankruptcy. So yes, it's going to affect our community, because now when we're sick in our community, the spending stops in our community. We don't have enough to sustain ourselves and our small businesses to keep going. It's a ripple effect. So small businesses are struggling, and they're not structured in a way that they're growing and maintaining and have that residual income coming in. So there's a lot of, in terms of economics, we have to do a lot of a re-education that needs to take place, a teaching that needs to take place within our community.
Ms. Perry.
Yes.
Same question. Did you think the coronavirus would have such a profound effect on the African American small business community so quickly? If so, why? If not, why not?
Well, I absolutely thought it would have an impact, and it's because we're existing in a very fragile economic ecosystem where not only are we debt financed in a very heavy way, and that there's not a lot of equity in our communities, and as we go through a generational shift, we haven't educated our own people enough to hold on to the equity of the World War II generation and keep it in the community, as opposed to selling it and moving out or moving away. Therefore, there's no support for neighborhood retail, which was already in a fragile situation. So then when you get a pandemic, when people are aging out, when people are not patronizing small businesses that were already on the edge of a cliff, yeah, you're going to slide over the cliff. And you know, you're already in survival mode, and then a pandemic hits and you're beyond trying to survive. You're trying to hang on by your fingernails so that you can come out of this and then start over again, because it's going to require an entire reset.
Ms. Langdon, I want to come back to you. What could African American small business owners have done to prepare for the possible impact of COVID if we had had a warning system in place?
We have to be more proactive as a community. We're constantly in a state of reaction where we react to things. If we had more savings, if we had more, as Dan was just saying, if we had that, if we reserved that equity, if we held on to that, and we were more investing more in stocks, bonds, just real estate, if we diversified our portfolios more and weren't so afraid, and to just really get out there and do things. And like I said, when it comes to small businesses, and I deal with thousands of small business owners on a daily basis or weekly basis, shall I say, and what I notice, especially among African American business owners, is that fear, and they're afraid. and they're trying to hold on, and they don't understand the concept of, okay, let me put some money over here for marketing. Let me invest over here for this. Let me put aside for a rainy day. Let me save this for this. This is how I'm going to grow. They're trying to hold on to what they have, and they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. So they're 30 days away from bankruptcy. So definitely.
And Ms. Perry, from your side as a legislator, as a city council person, what could African American small business owners have done to prepare for the possible impact of COVID if they have been a warning system in place?
Well, I think that as a former council person and one who just finished running for county supervisor, you know, the county is the one that administers public health care funds and mental health care funds. And I think this will be a classic case study in how we can get it right as we go through phase 2, 3, and 4 in terms of massive information disbursement that is culturally competent and targeted to various ethnic communities through all levels, including small business, you know, religious structures, by special interest, by employment, by work source centers, to get information out through existing networks to teach people, you know, again, the basics that you can do. What's in your control? Wearing the mask, socially distancing. Don't do anything that you don't have to do. But also using technology to disperse that information, and especially on behalf of small businesses. And that is one thing that local government can do for small businesses, is disperse information through its existing technology networks. And we need to make sure to demand more of that.
Thank you so much, Anthony. I turn it over back to you.
Thank you. Outstanding. We've talked about why. We're getting into some answers now. Again, unfortunately, the Black community has health issues. Of course, we're pointing out economic issues. Hey, PTSD. You know, what's the remedy? I want to hear more remedy. Dr. Diop, could you speak to this?
I will try. Let me see here. Am I on? Yes, I will try. Well, we spoke about the health disparity and the economic disparity, but we didn't speak about the environment into which we live. The constant racism, the daily indignities have a direct health effect on African Americans. And on the other hand, the economic difficulties, we have what you call redlining. And it looked like there are two gates, lower gates that's handled by the police, who keep people down, give them a police record, a prison record. And you have the higher gate where the banking system, the economics don't lend to Black people. Black people are not inherently less healthy than whites. I'll compare to Africans, for instance, have the same level of health as a white one here. And also, they are very entrepreneurial, but they are held down by the lack of loan or cooperation from the institutional systems. So the system is not to change necessarily the Black African, but to change the substrate, the system in which they live. So it's a two-pronged effect. Fight the injustice in the police and the economic injustice too.
Very good. Dr. Henderson, what can all people do to better take care of themselves? And then I'd like to ask Dr. Daniels to chime in as to what parents can do to help their families to achieve better health as well.
Well, I think that prevention is, an ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. And so prevention starts in the human body with nutrition and proper emotional wellness and physical wellness. And I think that would be the key. The next would be knowing your family history. knowing what is the disease pattern within your family, what genetic diseases you may be prone to. In our community, prostate cancer is something that we're always familiar with, and hypertension, but there are other things to know about. And if those things are important, then screen for those things. I think those things we can do. In terms of the virus itself and the current pandemic, the CDC's recommendations about hand washing, masks, social distancing is critically important, and to prevent you from being exposed to the virus and becoming possibly a candidate for hospitalization. I am seeing younger people now than in the first cycle of this disease. At first, it was people over 60 who were dying. Now I've seen situations where there are mothers and sons in their 20s, admitted to the hospital, and the son dies and the mother lives, but is recovering over a long period of time. So we have to be very careful at every level to protect ourselves and follow preventive techniques.
I'd like to add to that just a little bit, if you don't mind. Thank you for that, Dr. Henderson. Thank you, Yolanda, for this opportunity. As the founder of the Black Barbershop Health Outreach Program, we screened over 30,000 men across the country. And we could see this happening almost a decade ago when we were seeing African-American men who had never been to the doctor before, who had never had a blood pressure check before, where the only time they had any kind of interface with the healthcare delivery system was in the emergency room. So this was Katrina, harbinger of things to come. Just that one hurricane showed just how fragile the Black community is. Now we're dealing with a pandemic that has really put the rug back on just how fragile our healthcare delivery system is. It's not affordable, it's not accessible, and if you can access it, it's not even adequate. So just because you have access to a waiting list doesn't mean you have access to healthcare. So this was something that was almost predictable in many ways. And to deal with the PSTD, we live in a society where African Americans are dealing with stress, psychic violence. If physical violence can hurt you physically, psychic violence can affect you mentally. The things we see on physically, the music we allow ourselves and our children to hear affect us mentally and our ability to endure something like this. So this was almost predictable.
May I add to that? There's such a thing that's called the fight or flight mechanism. That's either when you see something that's frightening you, the body either pumps to run or it pumps to stand and fight. This happens to us over and over and over again. I mean, I'm one, if I see a black and white behind me, I get a little nervous. And I'm sure most of you do too, because you just don't know what's gonna go down. And if that happens over and over and over again, it sets up high blood pressure. And that's been shown at Yale and some other places. The repeated fight or flight mechanism will lead to the development of high blood pressure. And it might be one of the reasons that we have a bit more high blood pressure than other groups because of this intrinsic fight or flight mechanism.
And one last thing on high blood pressure. When we went around the country, we found that most Black men had high blood pressure that they couldn't pay the bill. That's why they couldn't have it. That's why they were stressed out, because they couldn't bring home food to their family. So sometimes it's not always you didn't eat right, you didn't exercise, and you were smoking. There were other things that put you at risk of having high blood pressure. And I think sometimes in our community, when they didn't have high blood pressure, the doctor wants to give them a pill. If that doesn't work, to give them another pill. And no one is talking about the real reason why this brother's got high blood pressure.
Right.
I appreciate you sharing that, Dr. Rutherford, because, and Dr. Ware, because maybe 12 years ago for me, I had a bout with cholesterol. Had some challenges, didn't know what it was. Diagnosed me with high cholesterol. Doctor wanted to give me a pill. I said, no, we're not going to take a pill. Let me find out a naturopathic course to go. And between a naturopathic course and me exercising my faith, I'll conquer this. Within 12 years, it was conquered, done away with. The following year, I come back, I have a an exam, the doctor says, oh, your cholesterol is high again. Have you changed your diet? No. At that point in time, I changed to a pescatarian diet. And that was one of the ways that I conquered the cholesterol. And so he concluded, after running some other tests, he said, most leaders, especially minority leaders, face this. And the cause of the high cholesterol is stress. And I was initially in denial to it, but stress affects the body in so many ways. PTSD, all these things that you are talking about. So I really appreciate that. Dr. Daniels, can you chime in on this?
Yes, you did ask what families could do, and as mentioned before, I believe by Dr. Henderson, the guidelines that are set out by the CDC are the best things a family could do to minimize their possibility of gaining the infection. Now, we shouldn't minimize the importance of the measures that are put out. It is not a great thing that's being asked of you. It's something that asks of you to protect your life. And it's not meant to infringe on your rights, as some profess. But complying with the precautionary measures would give you an advantage that historically we haven't had. Okay, we've had long-standing systemic health and social inequities that put us at greater risk. But these guidelines are meant for everybody. It's meant to not only protect ourselves, but protect the people around us.
Right. And wear the mask correctly.
I beg your pardon?
I said, and wear the mask correctly. A lot of patients are walking around with the mask like this and not really protecting themselves or other people. I'm just saying, if you have a mask, wear it correctly.
Very good point. Yes, very good point for all of us. Because sometimes you just get tired of that mask covering you, you know, breathing inside that mask.
Anthony?
Yes.
Sir, we have a timetable and you have effectively gone over it twice. So I'm going to ask you, sir, that you stay within our time limit so we can make sure that we get all the information out that we're trying to get out. And so really be cognizant of your time. Thank you. I want to ask Ms. Perry, as frontline, Ms. Langdon, as frontline and essential workers, what could we have done to protect the workers in his or her home to mitigate, lessen, or eliminate exposure to family members? What could we have done for the frontline workers? And I'm going to also open this up to the doctors as well, but this is first to you, Ms. Langdon, because this is a financial situation, because most folks that are frontline workers don't necessarily want to be on the front line.
Right.
They just have to be in order to continue to pay their bills.
That is true.
So what could we have done to protect that frontline worker at his home front to mitigate, lessen, or eliminate exposure to family members?
I'm back to the education portion of it. If we educated our community more on disease and the prevention and how it came out, and it initially came out we didn't need to wear the protective gear. Then it came out we should wear the protective gear. Then it came out we should do this. But if we were prepared in advance, because this is not the first pandemic, if we were prepared in advance and knew in our communities what we could do in order to stay protected and not bring it into our homes or take it more seriously, because I know even within our community, talk is, oh, it's not real. Oh, this is a conspiracy. Oh, this is this. Oh, this is that. They're making it into something bigger because of this. I mean, these are the conversations that we have in our community. So now, even if that's the case, let's protect our loved ones. Let's protect our community. And let's say, just in case this is real, then these are the steps. These are the things that we need to do within our community. These are the things that you need to do before you come home. I mean, I've seen many news broadcasts where the doctors come home and they wash themselves down before they come inside the house because they want to protect their families. So doing the same thing and taking it serious in our communities and taking those measures instead of downplaying it.
I want to ask Dr. Daniels, because he is a dentist and because the equipment that you all have to use, and as a frontline, people don't realize that hygienists and dentists are frontline workers. How exposed are you all, and what precautions can you take to help your family?
Well, actually, Jay, we do use universal precautions. That is, we utilize personal protective equipment for more than 30 years now.
Right.
So
but
this
does
has
this
not been a great change for us, but they have added layers onto that we do have to somehow initiate. It's been suggested that we gain some, if possible, some negative pressure rooms for treatment. We do utilize these precautions for every patient. It's not that we don gloves and masks for a particular patient because of their medical history, but these are things that have been required of us for many years by all state licensing boards for us to do. And we do see ourselves as essential safety net providers for the community. So we want to make sure that we're available to them to provide relief from pain and acute infection, even though they have previously requested that we not provide non-essential procedures. We have throughout this time been available for emergency procedures and for urgent care.
Dr. Holmes, I know you wanted to add on to it, then I have to go to my second question. So could you give me a quick response to it?
My best. I just wanted to preface it by saying that, putting out there that when white America catches a cold, Black America catches pneumonia. We've heard of this, and this is even more true with in crisis such as this. Healthcare disparities are even amplified beyond what we normally see.
Sir, we can barely hear you. Are you on a speakerphone? Or are you on a headset? We can barely hear you. And I have a short time, so if you could shorten it for me.
Well, the point that I want to make, can you hear me clearly now? Is that
yes, now we can.
One casualty of the COVID-19 pandemic is that it has led to delay in diagnosis and treatment of many other conditions. I'd like to remind my patients and colleagues that COVID-19 did not cure breast cancer. And as a result, we can't put off screening and diagnosis of breast cancer, just like we cannot delay screening and diagnosis of other health conditions, such as what we've discussed already, diabetes, hypertension, and other conditions. So I just wanted to emphasize the importance of being attentive to managing not just this pressing crisis, COVID-19, but encouraging patients to maintain their appointments, to maintain their follow-ups, to go to their offices of their physicians, even though they may fear the potential for transmission, because we cannot set aside the problems that they face, the primary diagnosis that they face, breast cancer and other potential risks, because of fear of COVID-19. We have to be responsive to COVID-19,
yes,
but also to manage that risk as well as the others.
I'm sorry, Donald. I'm Dr. Henderson. I'll come back to you on this next question. I was going to come to you anyway, but because again, you guys, we have a real timetable that we want to make sure that we stick to. This is for Ms. Perry. African American small business owners have always had to deal with systemic racism when it comes to banking, local resources, and health programs. What, in your opinion, has the coronavirus done to further exacerbate or help correct this issue?
Well, I think it's laid bare the gaps in the system, the gaps from a lending perspective, gaps in the transmission of information. And I also think that it has caused quite possibly people to become more galvanized within business improvement districts, within their chambers of commerce, within their own communities to demand more from their local lending institutions. And I see a lot of lending institutions, I mean, I'm getting information every day from the major banks and from smaller banks wanting to put money out there to help people survive and to be able to hang on. Some of it is grant money, some of it is long-term loans. But for some of this grant money, it's kind of interesting because if you don't exceed the ceiling, you may not have to pay it back. Now, of course, the banks aren't doing it out of the goodness of their heart. They have requirements that are the Community Reinvestment Act to put money out into the community to satisfy, federal requirements to be able to continue to, exist and to loan. But, again, each bank has to be very active in putting that information out there so that small business groups, owners, whatever, can take advantage of this opportunity to be able to last another 120 days, another 6 months,
Yes,
maybe another year.
and I see a lot of what looks like redlining. Even when I start looking at some of the criterion, they make the money available, and then they put a criteria in place that small businesses, especially African American businesses, which 95% of ours are sole proprietors, they don't meet the criterion. That's another issue. I want to go to Bill Relaford, Dr. Bill Relaford, because I don't think I've asked him a question, or I haven't heard his voice yet. And I'm going to ask you the same question, Doc. African American small business owners have always had to deal with systemic racism when it comes to banking. I'm sure it's the same in your profession. Local resources and help programs. What, in your opinion, has the coronavirus done to further exacerbate or help correct this issue? You gotta take yourself off mute, sir.
So I think the coronavirus has been bittersweet in many instances, and it has, in many ways, provided opportunity for those people that have not allowed themselves to be held hostage by fear. I think those people that use this opportunity to be on lockdown, to be silent, to meditate, and to focus, you'll find that when you take that route, that opportunity abound. What I've been seeing is a very unusual trend. The commingling of civil unrest and racial tensions with COVID has made a lot of companies more sensitive about how many people do we have of African American we have on our board? How many people do we have on our cast that are African American? So I think that this may have been an unusual mixture that can really give birth to a lot of opportunity for African Americans who are ready. This is the type of thing where you can't try to get ready. You should have been staying ready and being prepared along the way. So I think I'm going to push back on, what do we need to do now? The question is, what do we need to do restarting over from scratch? Because you can't get on the field and say, what play should we run right now? It is the Super Bowl. If you're not ready, the best thing to do is hunker down and get out of the way and stay out of the way until this whole thing kind of settles. That's what I'm seeing with my feet on the ground, that there's opportunity in chaos.
I agree with you. As a matter of fact, just to make it, and the reason why I'm speaking right now, you guys, because we actually have a few minutes because we're on question number 8 and we haven't got to 7 o'clock hour. So we do have a little time. Dr. Wallace, I'm gonna get to you next. But just to speak to your opportunity, Dr. Relaford, and if you were in the stock market, you know that the market plummeted 20,000 points. So you were able to buy airline stocks and cruise line stocks for 20% of what their actual price was. You could buy Carnival Cruise Line for $9.77. You could buy Royal Caribbean for $22 when it's a $135 stock, and people actually made money. We have to become more financially literate. I think it's our number one issue in our country is financial literacy. Dr. Wallace, the same question.
I gotta just put one thing there, that the reason, in my opinion, that we are so vulnerable is we don't control the products that we consume as a people. We don't control hair care. We don't control all these products that we should be making money off of. We don't even control fried chicken anymore.
You're right.
Look at it. So I think if we control the products we consume, then we can do the stock market after that.
Well, if you're in the stock market, you control the product because you own the company. You're an investor. You're a stockholder, and so it's not one or the other. They work hand in hand. It's a multi. So it's not one or the other.
I want to.
But let me let Dr. Wallace. Dr. Wallace, let me get Dr. Wallace in here because he hasn't said anything. Dr. Wallace, you see that we're getting ready to have a healthy debate here. What do you see it? What do you fit in on small business owners have always dealt with the systemic racism when it comes to banking, local resources, and health programs. What, in your opinion, has the coronavirus done to further exacerbate or help correct this issue?
I think that it's completely exacerbated what the problem is. It's made people understand, and I certainly, first of all, want to thank Yolanda in particular for allowing me to be on the panel and these distinguished individuals. They certainly have levels of expertise in these various areas. I've been going along for the ride as we've been proceeding with this. But what I'd like to say with regards to the small business, it certainly has been a significant impact on that. And I understand part about if you haven't been ready, it's too late or there's some issues or problems. I pretty much have focused my attention on moving forward and what do we have to do from here. And as was mentioned earlier, our office has never closed, and it hasn't closed because we talked about the impact of the coronavirus with regards to the Black community. And in my practice, especially the Vernbro practice up in Vernon and Broadway, which is primarily African-American, I close. There are too many of my patients who have acute illnesses, and I'm the dermatologist on the panel here, but issues with regards to psoriasis and atopic dermatitis, issues with regards to sarcoidosis, issues with regards to lupus, which have run rapid in our community. How can I close? So it's been a matter of we've been seeing actually more patients that we would normally see because they don't have access, as was mentioned earlier, other than to emergency rooms and that. And that's a behavior that we need to change. But right now, I think that we need to move forward with regards to what can we provide to be that springboard going forward. Again, in my practice with regards to dermatology, the issue is doing protective things such as washing your hands and wearing masks. Well, I've had people who have gotten excessively been washing their hands, so now they have breakouts on their hands. Right. Their mask has been too tight, or they haven't been doing as you're supposed to do and change that mask with more regularity and frequency, or the cloth mask that you can get. You're supposed to wash that every day. So we've been seeing people come in with rashes on their face, people come in with problems with regards to their hands, on top of, as it was mentioned by others, we still have all the other diseases that are out there that many of them, there's an emotional component that's associated with it, and people who have had to stay at home have really stressed out. So it's exacerbated what their problems are. And we've really just had to, in fact, I've had to hire more staff to address the needs of the community there, and all of us as givers, as healthcare providers. I'm sure that you're seeing the same thing, or your patients don't know that you're available. So let's get that word out. And I'm hoping that they, in listening here, that you can say that we are open, we are here to provide, we are givers, and we'll push through this. But I think all the other issues with regards to finance, with regards to things that the Honorable Jan Perry can answer in terms of legislative things are great, but there's some things that we have to do right now. And number one is that protect yourself. This is a real disease. And we have an opportunity to float underneath the curve that they keep talking about. When I looked at those pictures of people out in Huntington Beach, and there are 40,000 people at the beach without masks and these people feeling that it's against their civil liberties to say protect yourself. And there are folks that are standing on Detroit's City Hall with weapons and the rest of that. They want to fight to be able to keep their mask off and go. It's time for Black folks to be smart. Wear your mask, wash your hands, understand that we can float underneath this. We already know what it's like to be incarcerated in our homes or in jails. We know what we had to go through throughout decades and centuries of staying low. It's time for us to be smart, as many of us have been doing. And if you love your grandmother, protect her, and protect her by either not seeing her, wave through the window, pass something on, knowing that passing groceries and the rest of that coming from non-living things is not how the virus is passed. Is not how the virus is passed with regularity. In fact, it's less than 5% goes there. It is airborne. So kissing grandma and breathing on her, what we have is a very simple 1, 2, 3. And Mr. King, I'm going to be off in 1 second. If you both don't have a mask, you should be only within 1 breath. What's a breath? That if you have a mask and they don't, you got 2 breaths. And if both of you have a mask on, it's 3 breaths and 6 feet away. 1, 2, 3. No mask, 1 mask, 2 masks. Keep your distance. And I think that that's some fundamental thing all of us can do. Wash your hands when you've been outside. Protect yourselves. I want to see you in next century.
Okay, we have 2 loose questions that came up that we have to get to. We're still on time. We're still a little ahead of time. So, Anthony, after these 2 loose questions, we'll turn it back on to you. One is for Dr. John Daniels. Is there a correlation between some of the dental issues and COVID-19 that are happening right now?
No direct correlation that I know of. It's just, as with other diseases, anytime that you have a chronic, long-standing disease, it will make you susceptible to opportunistic infection.
Okay.
Now, that's what coronavirus is. And if you are...
So there's no correlation, there's not a correlation, it's just what it is. I'm sorry, sir, I just needed to have that answer. And then Dr. Donald Henderson, what is COVID toe?
What is COVID?
Toe.
Toe. Well, first of all, there are a wide variety of effects that this virus has throughout the body.
I need 30 seconds. 30 seconds of what is
it
COVID.
affects the cardiovascular system, the neurological system, the muscular system, the respiratory system, and all the systems in the body. So when you have a decreased blood supply to any distant part of your body, it turns blue or turns dark. And so you can have not only a toe, you can have ischemia of the entire limb.
Right,
blood
okay,
clots.
but somebody asked specifically about COVID toe. Dr. Relaford,
Yeah.
I didn't know that you were the expert.
I'll take that one.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
30 seconds, sir. 30 seconds.
The COVID virus is evolving very, very rapidly, and every day we're coming out with some new findings we didn't know. Back in April and March, we thought that COVID had some digital manifestations. Just Friday, in the Journal of the Medical Association, just said that there's no correlation between COVID and COVID. So that was something related to people being on lockdown and related to having feet uncovered. There's more details to that, but that's just hot off the press. So as I mentioned, this disease is evolving every day. New things are coming out.
Okay, back to you, Pastor Wallace. Next question.
All right. With that, great answers, great information shared. I'm going to direct this question to Ms. Jan Perry. The county is supposed to open back up fully July 4th. Do you believe that's too soon, or will this, or is there a better way to handle the reopening? Because a lot of people are looking at July 4th being the day we go back to some sense of normalcy, which we know that normal will never be the normal that we once knew.
That's right. Well, I was watching the news just last night, and it indicated that the numbers in the Los Angeles County are continuing to rise. And as they continue to rise, common sense would dictate that you have to curtail opportunities for people to congregate and put themselves at risk. So that means those county-run facilities, the beaches, recreation and parks, those kinds of things, they're probably going to have to go back on to a lockdown, particularly over a holiday weekend, because we've already seen serious examples of people not being able to restrain themselves. And now, people are going to be angry, people are going to be mad, but, you have to make a choice. And this is a long-term choice of, do we help them take care of themselves and their families so we can go back to stopping the spread and going below these numbers? Or do we worry about getting people being angry with us? And I say we gotta focus on the public health risks. And, if we have to head towards a lockdown, even if it's a partial lockdown, that's where we're headed if these numbers continue to go up, which looks like they are.
Before we go to the next
Okay, so let me ask you this, Dr. Dennis. Jan just said lockdown, right?
Excuse me.
Do you believe shutting down the community is the answer to flatten the line, or is it a misuse of power? I want to throw that out there.
And this is Colette Williams, and we're going to go to break. Pastor Anthony McFarland, thank you for that question. Hold that question. And we've got 3 questions, one for Dr. Wallace. That question will be presented to Pastor Anthony McFarland has already chosen. And we also want to talk more about the COVID toe. So doctors, don't go away. We do have to go to break right now. Very, very much. We knew that very lively and hot and very informative discussion. So don't go away. We're going to go to break, and we will be
Oh.
This broadcast is being brought to you by Dr. Bill Relaford's Foot and Ankle Institute. Are you suffering from foot and toenail fungus? Is your back hurting and you don't know why? Well, it might be your feet that are contributing to your back and foot pain. Finally, you can get rid of back and foot pain and toenail fungus all in one visit to Dr. Bill Relaford's Foot and Ankle Institute. Dr. Relaford's antifungal treatment will have you asking, where have you been all my life? Dr. Relaford's foot treatment is known around the world. When you're ready to get rid of that nagging pain in your feet and back, call Dr. Relaford's office at 310-412-0183 for an appointment. Dr. Relaford is located at 455 North Prairie Avenue in Inglewood, California. Remember to call Dr. Bill Relaford's Foot and Ankle Institute for diabetic foot care, neuropathic foot care, and overall wellness. Dr. Relaford can be reached at relaford's.com. Remember, www.relafordsinstitute.com. Remember to call Dr. Bill Relaford's Foot and Ankle Institute. We are back, and thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Colette Williams, and we're here with Pastor Anthony McFarland and Mr. J. key. And we're going to continue this dialogue with Dr. Wallace. I think that is the next doctor we have up here. Dr. Wallace, the question is there a correlation between COVID-19 and skin care or skin conditions? Can you please speak to that? Thank you.
I don't think there's any correlation to it. However, it is one of the tools that are used in making an assessment or a diagnosis with regards to it. In dermatology, what we've seen is not only can you have COVID toe, but you can also have it on the fingers. And there's also this sort of matte-like purplish that you can get, purple color that you can get on the trunk, primarily over your abdomen or your stomach area. Of course, that's also more difficult to find in the darker colors, and why dermatologists have around the world have been significant in there. One of my major contacts are coming from South Africa, and Yolanda, as you know, that I'm involved with the World Boxing Association. And so I've been able to talk to doctors in Italy, South Africa, and been on staff in Guangzhou, China since 1995. So a lot of information is coming, especially for what I'm asking for in dermatology. And yes, and as it was mentioned earlier, I think it was Dr. Henderson talked about it, that there can be these micro clots that happen under the fingernails, on the tips of fingers, but we're seeing this primarily in the younger of both children and especially teens. So it's only one of the things that we're able to see, but it is there's no particular and direct correlation with that. Several times that they found out that it is not that particular disease, it is not COVID, but there's a small percentage of people who do have that.
Thank you very much. And I will Anthony McFarland to issue the other questions. Thank you.
Yes, my last question was directed at Dr. Dennis Holmes as it pertains to the shutdown. Do you believe that shutting down the community is the answer, the total answer to flattening the line? Or again, is it a misuse of power in some respect?
So thanks for the question. I think it's more nuanced, obviously. It's unrealistic to think that we can simply shut down the community. Most people can't. They may be able to survive COVID, but they won't be able to survive the economic impact of being unemployed and not being able to maintain their welfare. So we have to find a way to do both to open up and also maintain our health. And, you know, the numbers nationally are not rising simply because, you know, cities aren't coming off lockdown. It's because when people have come out of lockdown, they've begun to behave, you know, irresponsibly, meaning that they haven't been doing the things that we know to work. So we really have to sort of find a way both to sort of, to expand, you know, our access to enterprise, be able to work, be able to build businesses, but also use this as an opportunity to adapt to this new challenge that we're facing as a national community, to figure out how we can coexist and thrive in spite of the pandemic. I think we can do that, and I think that, you know, we're in the process of doing it. We just have to be responsible and smart about it.
Thank you so much. Back to Jay King.
Jay, you have to unmute yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, you're good.
I was just jibber jabbing too. I'm going to go back to Councilwoman Perry. Miss Perry, as you know, municipalities were giving hand sanitizers and masks and different items to business owners. How long, in your opinion, should local municipalities supply business owners with these items? Should it be throughout the pandemic? I mean, and after we open up, or should it just be during the time period and then after we open up the cities and states that they're on their own?
I think that any practice that encourages good hygiene and encourages sanitary interactions should continue for as long as it's possible. And to be able to fund that either through public dollars or through philanthropic outreach, however that can be done, to target communities in a very positive way. It should continue. One thing I wanted to go back and amend, you know, when you asked me a question about is the county opening up too soon, you know, the counties and cities have responsibilities over certain public gathering spots, like beaches, for example. The county runs the beaches, they run recreation and park facilities. So I wasn't talking about, quote, shutting down everything, because I think businesses have adapted in many ways. You can see that in restaurants where, you know, now they're doing outdoor seating and, you know, they've got customers doing takeout and things like that. So they're in survival mode, but they're adapting. What I was talking about are those actual assets that are under the authority of government to control. And I picked beaches as an example because those are the things that you see on the news where the failure to wear a mask seems to be most egregious. And when you look at a holiday weekend, you know, everybody's going to want to go and relax and be outside, and that's a chance to have a very unprotected gathering of people. But as far as providing those basic tools, masks, hand sanitizers, I think you've probably been in businesses like I have been in the banks and things like that, where they have permanent installations of hand sanitizers. And, you know, the same might be possible for paper masks at a very low cost, or dispensers in public buildings so that people could always grab one when they need one for the foreseeable future.
Ms. Langdon, how should, as a business strategist, how would you advise your small business people when it comes to these types of items? Would you, how long would you advise them to make this item part of their budget, bottom line, that they have these items on hand, even after their city and state opens up?
Well, especially when it comes to small businesses, they cannot afford to close down. They can't afford for their employees to call in. I mean, it's very important that they keep everything going. So as long as those resources are available, and they are now through the grants, through the city, through the various different avenues, the nonprofits, then I would say take advantage of them as long as you possibly can. And not only that, there's outlets where you can buy these things wholesale as a business owner, and most business owners hopefully would have their resale or their wholesale license, so they'd be able to get these items wholesale. But as long as they possibly can, they want to do all that they can to keep their customers and their employees safe.
So I want to come right back to you. How do you think a second shutdown would affect the African-American small business community that is already said to be affected to the degree that we're going to lose somewhere between 40 and 60% of African-American small businesses due to the coronavirus shutdown? How much more devastating do you think this would be to the African-American small business community if we had a second shutdown?
We're not prepared. And we talked about that before. We're just not prepared in our community. So we have to be adaptable. Now I have clients who I had one that had a retail location. So what we decided to do was you make clothes. She's a clothing designer. So now she's doing masks, and she's doing a tremendous amount of sales in her masks. She's now contracted with several bigger companies, and she's offering them private label masks for their employees. So now we have to be creative. We have to be adaptable in order for our small businesses to survive. Because yes, more millionaires and more billionaires are made in a downturn, but you have to be adaptable. You have to be able to figure out other ways and other revenue streams in order to make it work.
Okay, I'm going to go to you, Councilwoman. How do you think a second shutdown will affect the African-American small business community?
Well, I think it would be devastating, but I also think, and I agree with the previous speaker, that we do have to be adaptable. I've paid close attention to certain small businesses. Let's take restaurants, for example. Not only have they adapted in terms of their customer base and, you know, serve more limited menus, but you can also look who's in your supply chain, and you can take those individuals or companies in your supply chain and use the restaurant as a vehicle for putting their product out there too, so that your customer can come and not only, you know, get some food that's prepared, but you can get fresh produce from your suppliers that you buy from to be able to prepare the food. And so, you know, then you're creating a double opportunity for your customers to come to your place as a one-stop shop, as opposed to I'll go there for the, you know, the vegetables and I'll go over here for something else. You know, if they can't get to a grocery store, so you become almost like a dispensary of food in a food desert. And if you can look at your small business that way, how can I expand to meet the need that is unmet right in front of us within my own supply chain? That's another way to survive and even thrive, possibly, as many of these businesses have converted into mask making businesses, and they're thriving for now.
We have a question from the chat room. It says, a childhood neighbor has felt odd for several days. This morning about 4 a.m. she complained about not being able to breathe, so she was taken by ambulance to the hospital, where she died at 7:30 a.m. Are there others who have had similar occurrences? And that's for the doctor.
Dr. Diop.
We haven't had such a case, but we have had families where parents and children got positive for coronavirus. They have been sick, but they have all recovered. So we haven't had such a dramatic case. That's terrible. What happened?
Oh, and then we have another question here. I'm just going through the chat real quick so we can. There is now a run on eye masks. Should we all wear face masks?
We should. We should all wear face masks.
Okay, so
you should wear a face mask. There's the what they call the optic canal, which leads to the mucous membranes, and it is of the nose, the mouth, or the eye.
Not face mask, eye mask.
Eye mask.
Eye mask.
Well,
yeah, that's.
Not everybody should wear it. Yeah.
As in glasses, shield.
Goggles.
Like that.
One of the things that again, you can certainly transmit it through the eye. There's a small canal that's there. However, the nose, the mouth are exceptionally larger possibility and the risk of you getting there. So it is not a mandatory that you must have a face shield, but if you're going to be in an area, and especially if you're one of the frontline workers who are at the grocery store or seeing customers along the way, they should have their eyes protected, their nose protected, and their mouth protected.
Yeah.
Okay. Asymptomatic individuals, are asymptomatic individuals excused from any side effects, or are the side effects simply not visibly evident?
Could be.
Well, it could be either
the
way.
question again is, are asymptomatic individuals excused from any side effects, or are the side effects simply not visibly evident?
Is that for Dr. Wallace or Dr. Ware?
It doesn't say who. These are just questions that came out. I'm just on the board right now.
Okay, let's let's give that to Dr. Ware and then Dr. Wallace. Dr. Ware?
Well, yes. I mean, if you're symptomatic, then you're asymptomatic. I mean, you cannot assume that someone that is asymptomatic does not have the virus.
No, what they're asking is, is an individual excused from any side effects, or are the side effects simply not visibly evident? So they were asking.
We don't know.
We don't know.
They don't know.
We don't know.
Okay, that's good. Okay, that's good. So you guys don't know. Another question, Yolanda, I'll let you pick who answers them. A nurse who tested positive quarantined with her family for 14 days. They were negative after the 14 days. She's continued to test positive. Is it possible to test positive after being infected but not be contagious?
Okay, let's give that to Dr. Ware and then to Dr. Wallace and then to Dr. Henderson.
Well,
Dr. Ware?
Yes, well, if the family has not tested positive, I count that as a victory. But if she continues to test positive, then she has to continue to be quarantined.
The
Probably
question is,
another 14 days.
could she be positive after being infected but not be contagious? Can she be positive and not be affected? That's the question.
We don't know the natural history of this virus yet, but I would assume that she would be contagious if she's still positive.
Anybody else? Who else? Who was that? The next person.
Dr. Wallace?
Dr. Ware was absolutely correct.
Okay. I think we're going to get the same thing from everybody. So let's move on to the next question.
Fast food restaurants are looking for employees as they appear to have a high percentage who test positive. What is the risk to those whose food they've prepared? So fast food restaurants are looking for employees as they appear to have a high percentage who test positive. What is the risk to those whose food they've prepared?
The risk is low.
Okay, Papa Doc's restaurant closed suddenly, although their curbside was effective for call-ins and they had a separate line for takeout orders on site. If the closure was COVID related, should patrons be concerned?
Papados, and let's go to Dr. Henderson.
Yeah. I think the risk is low still.
He dropped off. I believe Dr. Henderson.
Okay. So go ahead, Dr. Diop.
I think the risk is low if they take the proper precaution in the preparation and keeping their recommended distances and hygienic level.
Okay.
Yeah, because the virus needs a living organism to thrive. It doesn't thrive on a dead organism or things that have never been alive.
Okay.
So let's go to Dr. Dennis Holmes wants to answer. He said, I think the former questions about testing positive depends on whether or not she's positive for the virus or positive for the antibodies. If positive for the antibodies alone, she should not be contagious. So that was that answer. It's being reported athletes who suffer with severe COVID symptoms are reflecting diminishing lung capacity. Is that accurate? Yolanda, please pick somebody to answer that question.
Okay, let's go to Dr. Diop.
Yes, we have seen some athletes who have not been able, after 2 months of recovering from COVID-19, not been able to go back to their speed and their distance. So there's a long-term effect that we don't know the extent of it. And one thing is apparent is that we don't know what the long-term effect of this virus is. And we might have a big problem after the epidemic is over to deal with complications that are that came from this viral infection. Now we are all focused on avoiding people dying, but that's a big problem that's coming later.
Yeah. So we're on time. We're at our last 4 questions. I'm going to turn this over to Pastor Anthony McFarland.
All right, we're going to turn the corner here. I'd like to turn the corner, and I'd like to direct this question to Dr. Bill Relaford as well as Dr. Donald Ware. Again, we're addressing COVID-19 in the African American community. As jails and prisoners are awarding early release, prisons are awarding early release due to the COVID-19, what steps are being taken to protect, if you can answer this question, and maybe Jan can chime in on this, taken to protect their families and communities from unknowingly spreading COVID-19 when the former prisoners may or may not know that they were infected?
You want me to go first?
Well,
I'm not aware of any protocols that are being used right now for anyone who is re-entering into the normal population. Just like with other types of health issues and STDs, some of those protocols are ambivalent and unclear as well. So with COVID-19, I think I haven't heard of any protocols the penal system is taking. In fact, they have a very fragile healthcare delivery system by itself. So I haven't heard of any protocols. I would like to pass it around. Has anyone heard of any protocols that are in place for anyone from the prison system to re-enter to the normal population? I haven't heard of any.
I haven't heard of any either. Go ahead, Jan.
No, I was going to say, I mean, when somebody goes through reentry out of the criminal justice system, they're usually assigned to a social service provider for a period of time to supervise their release, help them get job placement, help them get housing and things like that. But I have not heard of any revision of those protocols that includes educating people on how to not only care for themselves in this pandemic, what they bring home or not to their families. And so that is certainly something that should be looked at very closely. Again, the county is the provider of healthcare and the one who has the funding mechanisms to be able to do that. And so, you know, clearly that's a program that needs to be amended.
Yeah, and
they should all be tested.
I would even say that as the release should be almost like a quarantine. Probably from the time that they're released, they should be almost like at Staten Island in the old days, a halfway house, quarantine for 14 days. And if they test negative at that point, then they should be. But I would do that on each and every one coming out of that environment because of the risk of COVID in the prison system. So there should be something objective, not just social services. It should be something objective. If you're going to be released, you're quarantined for 14 days, and at the end of that time, if you pass, then you're out. I say that because you can be negative on the day of release, and 14 days later, you're positive, and you're positive all the time. So you need to have that halfway house to make sure that you do not bring the virus into the general population, plus all the other things you said, Jan.
I think we can safely say it's wisdom on behalf of whether it's a halfway house, whether it is family that these individuals are returning home to, for them to require and place responsibility on those individuals to get tested before they come into the home or after they come into the home.
Well, I would think that the prison
negative
would be
tests.
liable. I think they would be liable if they did not certify that they are COVID-free when they actually re-enter the population. You know, we can't put that on the family.
You're saying the prison, I want to make sure I understand that. You're saying the prison, or are you saying the individual?
No, I'm saying the prison system. I mean, to me, if they're going to release people back into the general population, they need to be able to certify that they have been quarantined, whatever you want to call it, for 14
and they're
days.
no longer contagious.
And they're no longer, they don't have the virus.
Yeah.
Contagious.
That we have available now.
Yeah.
Do a test and that person can still be released on the same day. But with the prison population, of course, our prison, they're talking about LA County jail, who was that particular was already 4 times as many people were packed in there than it was made for. So that concentration makes it difficult to control the virus. They don't know who has it. Clearly, everyone needs to be tested. And then the halfway house may be that quarantine period that's
right
there. But
that's what I'm talking about.
I know for a fact, I was a former clinical director at Chino Prison. The overcrowding that they have there, and all the docs know it's similar we were talking about, and stuff, a lot of other issues that are there just like wildfire. I'm sure that the number of prisoners who are incarcerated is way higher than we know. That information hasn't been let out. I think it's certainly a crime to allow a positive individual to go into the general population.
Right.
Would you, with that being said, would you advise everyone to get tested, or if they feel that they may be having some of the symptoms, to get tested?
I would advise everyone to get tested. Because one day you can have it, and one day you don't have it, the next day you can. So I would advise, we need to know what the denominator is. We don't know what it is.
Yeah, because there were reports that came out back in, at the beginning of COVID-19, that individuals back in November, December, if they had severe flus, it's a great possibility that they had it then, but they weren't necessarily, I don't think, diagnosing that virus as COVID-19 at that time. They were just trying to administer medicine to help people with severe flu symptoms.
I think that every prisoner who's released should have 2 negative tests before being released to the public or to their family.
Yeah,
they should.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
they
what
should have 2 negative tests. That's simple. Yeah.
Very good. Back to Jay King.
No, you got one more question, sir.
No, I'm within my time.
I know, but that's okay. You got you got one more question. You had 2 questions. You just asked as jails and prisons are awarding early release. Your second question is, since most prisoners went out and have health insurance, what needs to occur to encourage anyone with symptoms to get tested?
Well, I decided to go a different direction and just address, the panel, Dr. Wallace, as he was sharing so eloquently about prisoners.
The only reason why I said that to you, Mr. McFarland, is because my questions are based on me following you and your questions.
Okay, so you're set up and ready to go, sir.
Well, kind of, but you you're deviating. But we're gonna keep moving.
Yes, thank you.
So I'm gonna address this to Dr. Wallace. So we're giving prisoners early releases, but does that make them more susceptible? I'm sorry, not Dr. Wallace. I apologize, Ms. Langdon. We're giving prisoners early releases, but does that make them more susceptible to coming right back to prison, because we're reintroducing them into an environment where they can't work in the community, they have no money, they don't qualify for stimulus dollars. Are we releasing people to damage them and put them in a more compromising situation than they were in being in prison? Because we're putting them out there with no real ability to earn.
Right. And you're absolutely correct. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation that we can go on for hours and speak about just how the system is set up for failure. Because even going from prison to the halfway house, they don't give them the skills that they need. They don't have marketable skills in order to, like you said, go on to be productive citizens in society. But that's just the way the system is designed in our neighborhoods. Understanding that, then we have to create our own jobs. We have to create our own businesses so that the skills that they learned in prison, they can take those skills and bring them here and start their businesses here, because they're only going to make hourly minimum wage here, and minimum wage is not enough to support your family. So then you're back to that whole systematic, I have a felony, I can't get a real job, so I'm working minimum wage, and I have 3 kids over here. It's just the way it's designed. The system is not designed for us.
So can I interject here?
Absolutely.
Please.
So I was a former general manager of the Economic and Workforce Development Department for the city, with a robust system of workforce development centers. And I think what I can say here is that there are a system or an ecosystem of nonprofits that focus on the re-entry population and preparing them for work. One group in particular, it's called Second Call, and it focuses on helping people prepare themselves for careers, re-entry folks for careers in the trades, electricians, plumbers, and construction, and then providing them with the emotional support and the professional support that they need to be able to stay in those jobs and to be successful over the long term. So when you look at a long-term sustainable strategy that you demand from your legislators, your local government, and even from the federal government in terms of what they fund, one of the major sources of funding for workforce development should be targeted on people coming out of the criminal justice system, and it should never stop, whether we have a pandemic or not.
Right. And remember, a lot of our people shouldn't have been in prison in the first place.
That's true. So this is the last question, and then I'm going to turn it over to Yolanda. And this is for, and I want everybody to kind of get a piece of this, because it's going to be interesting, because I think it affects you all as business owners. Will insurance for African American small business owners go through the roof in the future because of things like COVID-19? And if so, what kinds of creative strategies can African American small business owners use to circumvent or curtail this possibility by creating partnerships and insurance programs with each other? And I'm going to start off with Miss Langdon and the Councilwoman Perry, and then open it up to everyone else. Miss Langdon, you first.
Now, when we're speaking of insurance, are we speaking of life insurance? Are we speaking of small business insurance?
Sure, small business insurance, because for my workers, if I have a business, right, I got to have insurance.
Right.
And
workers' comp.
But you know what? Because you bring up health insurance, life insurance, speak to it. Both.
Well, I was just going to say, especially in our communities, we do have to understand the importance of life insurance. Because now when we're dealing with situations like COVID-19, we're not out trying to raise money through car washes. We're not out trying to solicit GoFundMe pages because we're not insured in our communities. So in that case, if we start looking earlier, of course, the earlier we get insurance, the less expensive it's going to be. If you're 60 years old with health problems and you're going out trying to get life insurance, your policy is going to be through the roof. So yes, these are things that we should address early on before the problems occur. Again, being proactive. When it comes to business, small business insurance, I don't think that the pandemic, especially if you have not filed a claim, I don't think the pandemic is going to affect your small business insurance if no claim was filed. Of course, if a claim was filed because workers' comp or because different loss of wages or whatever type of claim, then of course your claims are going to go up. It's going to be affected.
May I make a comment about that? I happen to be on the board of the Black Shriners, Prince Hall Shriners, and we have property all over the country. And we just had a meeting of the board of directors last week, and what the insurance company, because we've been closed through this whole thing, we've had a reduction in our premium. However, what they're saying is that they will not insure us for any COVID-19 related illness. Right. So that's struck from the policy altogether, all over the country. Wow. So I don't know how you're being affected, but that's been the effect with our organization.
So what this begs for is a national conversation with the Black Chambers of Commerce across the country, and you might want to target 3 or 4 issues within the insurance industry to lobby these companies and to lobby your legislators at the state level to make legislative changes with an urgency clause, because it's immediate and prescient. For our economic survival, to put pressure on insurance companies, to do a revision in either their filter, their standards of practice, or their qualifiers, so that we are not pulled even further down.
I want to say thank you to Intentional Radio Network for hosting this, and all of the panelists. I do a lot of these panels, and oftentimes it starts sounding like Charlie Brown's teacher after a while. But you all gave some great answers, and I think it was very informative, and it was just a great symposium and discussion. And I hope that you all make it live where other people can hear this for the later date. I just think it was all of the panelists were outstanding, and I'm proud to be a part of it. I want to say thank you to Pastor Anthony McFarland for being my partner in this, and taking the time to make sure that we had a smooth running panel. And thank you, Yolanda.
And this is being recorded, so if anyone wants a recording, just hit us on changematters99@gmail.com.
And also, I've got a few questions, and I see that we do have questions on the board here. Hopefully, we will have time for a few more questions. Pastor Anthony and Jay, I'm going to take this time to ask a couple of questions, and I have two myself. One of the questions is, when I go into a grocery store and I see that there are the plastic partitions that are on the check stands, as you move through the check stand, you'll see that there is a partition up. It seems to me that they're not doing a whole lot of good simply because the partition is up, but when we're talking to the cashier, oftentimes they're going around that partition and they're handing things back and forth, and the partition isn't really doing any good. I've been in a store where the cashier doesn't even have a mask on, does not wear gloves. And I am a very finicky person, and that just drives me up the wall. Is there any risk in that? Doctors, can you answer that for me?
Any risk
Someone not wearing personal protective equipment? Yes.
I wear the personal protective equipment.
Well,
I wear the mask.
cashier. If
the
she is
cashier's
not wearing personal protective equipment, then
no
there is a
gloves
risk to you.
Okay, there's a
because
risk to me.
the exchange of money or
Yes.
exchange of credit card or even the receipt
Yes.
that puts you at risk. So
Okay.
the management of that store should require that the employees have this personal protective equipment when they're on duty.
Okay, and they do not.
Yes.
They do not. And some of them don't even want to disinfect the belt,
Counter.
the conveyor that moves. They don't want to do that. They get.
I wouldn't go to that store.
I'm not going back there.
Yes.
That's Ralph's. I'm not going back. So you're absolutely right. I'm not going back. But it seems as though we're getting a lot of people who just do not take this seriously. They are just not taking it seriously. They are laxed. They are just deciding that, it's too much. They want to go back to doing what they were doing before COVID-19. And we are experiencing greater problems. We've got more issues. It's not going to go anywhere until sometime next year because people are just not taking this seriously enough. They just are not. I'd like to.
May I make a comment before you move on, Yolanda?
Please.
I have, I don't know if any of you know Bishop Reginald Black. He's over at Inglewood Cemetery. He's a director over there. He's a patient of mine. He was in the office yesterday. And he tells me he has 60 bodies over at the mortuary. We're dying like that. We might have to have some kind of, I don't know, commercial, I don't know what it's going to take for these people to understand that people are dying, and not just the people in the nursing home.
Yeah.
Dying. 60 people. Can you imagine?
They're not taking it
Some
seriously.
of them are in a refrigerator. I mean, obviously, most of them are in a refrigerator. But he's got 60 people over there at Inglewood Cemetery that can't, there's so many, they can't bury them fast enough. That's the fact of the matter.
Yeah, and I think
even when we see the incidence of new cases go down, it doesn't mean that the virus is going to be gone.
Right.
No.
Right.
So we have to use the precautions that have been given to us and take them seriously. It's not an infringement on our rights. It's protecting your life.
Right. And what people are saying, my constitutional right, I should not have to wear a mask. And I think that is just absolutely the most absurd thing I've ever heard. One of the most absurd things. But not wearing a mask. What does it take to wear a mask? There's no infringement. It doesn't take anything to wear a mask and cover up. Absolutely nothing. And other people are just as, it's their right to also have constitutional rights that are adhered to. We all have the right not to get sick.
we also have the right not to be exposed to someone else who just doesn't care. So we've got an administration that is so fickle that people are walking around infecting other people and not even caring. So we've got great issues here that we really, really have to address. I wish we had another hour. One other question is, what is a super spreader? Dr. Holmes and Dr. Relaford, can you answer that? What is a super spreader?
I'll direct a question to Dr. Relaford.
Dr. Relaford?
From what I understand, a super spreader is someone who is perhaps at one of the Trump rallies, like in Tulsa, at an event where it's closed in and people are not wearing masks and they are hollering and screaming and cheering. And that one person can infect 1,000 people in one sitting versus one-on-one at the store or one-on-one in exchange going to the market. From my understanding, interpretation, a super spreader is someone who is in the right environment where they can infect 20, 30 people around them, and then that extrapolates exponentially into those people infecting others and so on and so forth.
Okay.
We have seen these individuals in, especially in the state of Texas, gone directly into the churches. So you're seeing choirs, you're seeing usher meetings, and you're seeing the rest of the congregation decided that they can't pretty much survive. They need donations, but very much they are not using any of the protective guidelines that are there. We have to understand, as everyone else has said, that this is real. It's time to get smart. And in boxing, as we say, protect yourself at all times. And that's not what's happening. If we're going to make it through minimizing the risk and the deaths that we see, I'm certainly looking at it at Cedars-Sinai Hospital also. So it affects not just us more than often. We've got to wise up, and all of us, and I'm sure all of the doctors are practicing, you can't get in my building, you certainly can't get into my office if you're gone.
Right.
We're trying to give as much as possible. We probably, we're giving away way over 100 a day. So having supplies that I can get a mask for not only my patients, but anyone else who's in the building is certainly important. And by example, because we also, as you mentioned earlier, Dr. Ware, you got to wear the mask correctly. So I spend half the time telling people, and including my staff, get that mask on correctly.
I would like to mention that I've seen an uptick in technology to help deal with the COVID pandemic. There's technology where you can test a patient's vitals remotely from a cell phone, from remote video recording on a phone, camera phone. The Black Barbershop Health Outreach Program is about to deploy some of that technology. One technology in particular can test a patient's O2 saturation with a cell phone. And so we will be deploying this in the next 2 weeks through the Black Barbershop Physician Network, which would be a network of African-American physicians where anyone around the country who wants to see a Black doctor will be able to see one on this platform. So health disparities have a lot to do with cultural appropriateness and people feeling comfortable with engaging with someone who understands their issues. So I think technology is advancing very rapidly to help monitor people that may be in isolation.
Okay,
we are in negotiation with for the same technology, and also speaking about the new cases. There has been some misinformation at the beginning of this epidemic, saying that the young people will be unscathed, and that's why probably they don't respect the proper distancing and the propagation. And now they form the bulk of the increase in cases.
Right.
Some of them are very, very, very sick.
Yes. Yes.
They all the time were a significant number. I mean, back in April, they were a significant number. You know, we were talking about it being a disease of old people, but the young people were quite involved even then in the California statistics. While I have, I just want to say one thing about this. You know, our people with the Black Lives Matter all over the country, we're talking about the super spreaders. I'm just going to have an open mic to them and say, wear your mask, social distance, do what you need to do. Because if you don't, you're going to end up not even being around in November to vote. That goes for the Black folks in the Black Lives Matter and the white folks in the Black Lives Matter. There are people that don't want you to vote. And there are people that don't want you to vote, so they let you be out there. And when it counts, you won't be counted. So I'm saying social distance, wear your mask, protest, protect yourself, and protect us, because we're going to need you down the road, because you can talk all you want, but you have to change the Senate, you have to change the presidency, you have to do all those things for it to matter.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. Ware. Thank you very much. I have another question. And one of our people in the audience wants to know, are non-medical face coverings effective?
Yes, they're effective.
Okay.
And one of the things that you can do is often talk the blow test. The issue with regards to the nose and mouth is that those are the areas that are at highest risk for you contracting the disease. If you get one of these masks that are off the street and you can blow a match out through that mask is worthless. So you want to have something, and it can be a cloth, or you can use a bandana, you can use a handkerchief of that, but you need to protect. And I want to just echo what Dr. Ware says, you've got to vote. You've got to vote. And so some of you may not know it, that the Trump administration has put in a brief to take away all of Obamacare.
Yes,
so,
yes, that's in the news, right.
Being covered, the only insurance that they have there, we've got to be able to do something. And if you need to join up with an organization like the NAACP that is looking at voter suppression, you need to get up and get out. Black Lives Matter. And we, as both physicians and all the people who are on this call, we have a moral responsibility to get the information out, but also practice. So if we are in our office, we're also giving people voter registration things. We're giving people information on what to do. We've got to be active, and certainly more than just healthcare providers.
In relation to the effectiveness of the mask,
yes,
you should not be using a mask with a one-way valve. I mean, you are exposing people around you while you yourself are protected. So those should not be utilized if at all possible.
Okay, with a one-way valve.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much. And I do have one other question, but I am going to have to bring this to a close momentarily. And the question is there any advice for those students who are going into college dorms? I don't know if college dorms are going to be open. It doesn't look like college dorms are going to be open. I do believe LA Unified is not going to open up on time this year. I was told that they're going to push it back. I can't even imagine dorm life. Can any of you speak to that quickly?
It's my understanding throughout the country that most colleges, universities, their dorms are shut down.
Yes. Okay. Okay. That's also my understanding. So we will talk about this a little bit later on. And I want to echo Dr. Wallace and also Dr. Daniels. Please, 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 your patients, your friends, your family, even those folks that you don't even know, please make sure that everyone understands this is an election like none other. Never in our lifetime has it ever been more important to vote. We have all got to make sure everybody above the age of 18, if they are not blue, they have to vote. There's no excuse not to. And those people that say, my vote doesn't count anyway, they need to know that their vote counts whether they go to the polls or not. Their vote will count either way. And please, please know We've got to be unified on this. We absolutely have to. We all, our lives depend on it. We don't have any chances. We don't have any more chances. This is it. We've got to vote, and we've got to make this matter. That's how we matter. Black lives have always mattered. Yeah. And we've got to prove that this is why we matter. And every time they show a movie, a film on how folks were beaten and killed, they lost their lives just so that we could vote. So for a Black person to say my vote doesn't count, that deserves a knuckle sandwich. So whatever you need to do, make sure all your people vote. I have a granddaughter who's 8. I'm taking her with me to the polls. Make sure everybody votes. And I would like to say thank you, thank you, thank you, because if I talk any longer, Kenny Hendricks is going to probably shut me down. I'm not going to let that happen tonight. So I want to say thank you very, very, very much. I'm looking at this board here, and they are saying superb, excellent, outstanding, informative. Thank you. All of the accolades, and the accolades go to all of you. And I want to say thank you very, very, very much. It's been a pleasure. I am so proud to have all of you on this broadcast. It is a world of good for all of us, and you've done a fantastic job. And I'd like to say, continue to do the work that you do in your communities. We need you. Make sure you are staying safe. Make sure you're covered, because we need you in your offices so that our people can see you. So I do want to say thank you very much. Is there anyone that would like to say anything before we close it out? Dr. Ware, anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, quickly, make sure our white folks that are with us on the Black Lives Matter live too, because they need to vote along with us to make things happen. It's no longer rhetoric, it's no longer dialogue, it has to be policy. And that election is coming, we need to be up and ready for the election. Black, white, the whole spectrum of people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Amen. Dr. Wallace?
Protect yourself at all times.
Great. Dr. Diop?
Protect those who are around you. Show
Great.
them respect.
Thank you. And Dr. Relaford?
Make sure that you don't watch too much TV. Sometimes fear and watching the 24-hour news cycle can do maybe more damage than actually being exposed to COVID virus. So stop watching so much television.
Oh, okay, I'll stop. Okay, sorry. Okay. And Jan Perry, Honorable Jan Perry, are you with us?
Yes.
Okay.
Wear the mask.
Yes.
Wear the mask.
Yes.
And if someone around you doesn't wear the mask, get the hell away from them.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And let's see. Miss Langdon, Arja Langdon, are you with us?
I'm here. Just get the facts, because yes, I agree. Watching the news all day and hearing the fake news, as they say, can have you just in a state of fear. So just know the facts.
That's right. And Dr. Holmes?
Just pay attention to your overall health. Although COVID is scary, many people are facing many health conditions that require ongoing management and care. Pay attention to make sure to seek the care of your global health, not your COVID health.
Right. Okay, Dr. Daniels?
Compliance, precautions are not strenuous, but these simple things will extend your life and make life better for the people around you. And address your stress. We're all under a great deal of stress. It's the new normal, and we have to be aware of that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Don't neglect your health.
That's right. And Pastor Anthony McFarland and Jay King, is there anything you'd like to say to the audience? Is there anything you'd like to say at all as we close out?
I would close with saying, family, keep God first, exercise wisdom, take care of yourself, do self-care, pay attention to what you're putting in your body, build your immune system with things like zinc and vitamin D and C and those good things to help you build a strong immune system that will fight off any type of virus. Keep your gut clean and keep walking by faith and not by sight. and we'll all make it to the other side of this.
That's right. And Jay King.
It's 8:01. We're 1 minute late.
You're not Kenny Hendricks.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad somebody noticed.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. It's been great. And I hope everybody is safe. Join us on Tuesday for another great show, Change Matters, with your host, Kenny Hendricks, and Colette Williams. Thank you very much, all. Have a good night. Be safe. Take care of yourself and take care of someone else. Good night, all. Take care.
Thank you.
Good night.